Netanyahu just gave an unmitigated warning to the international community as it relates to Iran. The mullahs of Iran are secretly advancing their illicit nuclear weapons program, and Israel, the United States, and all of our allies now face extreme danger. And the Washington Free Beacon reporting tonight that even our own intel community has now confirmed this. Coming up, we're going to show you all the evidence. We will explain why Obama's Iranian appeasement plan did nothing to slow the threat of nuclear proliferation in the world. And also tonight, more significant progress on the peninsula. The summit between North and South Korea and the United States is moving forward as planned. And now Kim Jong-un is allegedly prepared to end his nuclear weapons program if the United States promises not to invade. And the South Korean president is even suggesting that President Trump should get the Nobel Peace Prize for his important work in the region. That's going to make liberals' heads explode. Plus, another day, another damning revelation surrounding the deep state. Former director of national intelligence turned anti-Trump fake news CNN pundit James Clapper caught lying directly to Congress yet again. Is Congress ever going to will he face the General Flynn standard, or does he get the Hillary, oh, we don't have equal justice under the law standard? Also, John Brennan's comments, is this a deep state threat against the president of the United States? And later, we'll address Michelle Wolf's petty, cheap, lame performance at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And finally tonight, the caravan of Central American migrants is at our southern border, scaling the fence. Where is the Mexican government? All of that, plus Candace Owens is fresh off her meeting with Kanye West. She will give us the details later in the program. Buckle up. We have a busy opening news monologue. Appeasement never works. And tonight we have yet another damning reminder. The Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, is now sounding the alarm. And as per usual, the Prime Minister has pure moral clarity. I've been saying this for years. Now, the Prime Minister is revealing, according to thousands of pages of official documents obtained by intelligence sources, Iran's nuclear weapons program is alive and well. The Iranians call it Project Ahmad. It is secret. It is illicit. It is an ongoing scheme to construct nuclear weapons and the means to deliver them, including a very specific plan to develop 5 warheads, each containing a 10-kiloton yield. Now, here's what the Prime Minister, Netanyahu, said about this program in an incredible press conference, incredible bit of intelligence earlier today.
This was Iran's chance to fully come clean to the IAEA. They could tell the truth. They could say, we had this program, the secret program. It's over. We shelved it. It doesn't exist. We destroyed the material. Here's what Iran actually told the IAEA. It said, Iran denied the existence of a coordinated program aimed at the development of a nuclear explosive device and specifically denied, get this, specifically denied the existence of the Ahmad plan. The material proves otherwise, that Iran authorized, initiated, and funded Project Ahmad, a coordinated program aimed at the development of a nuclear explosive device. Here's another document from the archive. This is a master plan of Project Ahmad.
I'm told the Prime Minister did all of that entire presentation, PowerPoint, without any notes. Now, remember, this comes just 3 years after President Obama signed off on what is the worst deal in the history of the United States, frankly, the world. That was the multilateral agreement where the United States agreed to unlock $150 billion of frozen Iranian assets and send another $1.7 billion in cash, including an initial $400 million down payment, literally shipped in cargo planes and cash in other currencies. Now, some critical U.S. sanctions against Iran were lifted at the time. What did we get in return? A promise from radical Islamic mullahs of Iran that they temporarily halt their nuclear weapons program? The same mullahs that actively plan for the destruction of Israel, the same mullahs that chant death to America, death to Israel, that fund terrorism all over the world, that are fighting proxy war after proxy wars in Iraq and Syria and elsewhere, the same mullahs that are responsible for killing U.S. soldiers in Iraq, holding other Americans hostage. Remember, Obama told us, well, this was good for the world, but we warned you. This agreement was always a sham. No different than when Neville Chamberlain declared peace in his time and signed off on a deal trying to appease Adolf Hitler. No different than when Bill Clinton appeased Kim Jong-un's father, Kim Jong-il, and the agreement Clinton promised, this is a good deal for the American people. It will halt North Korea's nuclear weapons program and ambition once and for all. And in 2015, Obama wanted you to believe once again, if only we kiss the rings of despots and radicals and dictators, somehow they're going to be nice to us. Faulty, failed logic. Appeasement never works. President Trump now faces a very important decision, whether or not to hold Iran accountable and pull the U.S. out of this deeply flawed agreement. Here's how President Trump reacted to these incredible breaking developments today.
In 7 years, that deal will have expired, and Iran is free to go ahead and create nuclear weapons. That's not acceptable. 7 years is tomorrow. That's not acceptable. It's a horrible agreement for the United States, including the fact, Mr. President, that we gave Iran $150 billion and $1.8 billion in cash. Nigeria would like some of that. $1.8 billion in cash and $150 billion. You know what we got? We got nothing. We got nothing. So that doesn't mean I wouldn't negotiate a new agreement. We'll see what happens. But I think, if anything, what's happening today and what's happened over the last little while and what we've learned has really shown that I've been 100% right.
There are moments in history you have to learn from, and the devastating failures of appeasement, Neville Chamberlain, Bill Clinton in his day, President Obama in his way. It all has taught us appeasement never works. Peace through strength does work. Now, this brings us to our next topic, President Trump's historic diplomatic progress on the Korean Peninsula. Now, instead of trying to appease Kim Jong-un or bribe him with both loads of cash, President Trump took some very tough measures. Now, in the early months of the administration, remember, the president increased sanctions on the North Korean regime. He sent multiple carrier strike groups to the region. He squeezed North Korea's most important strategic partner, China, all the while calling Kim Jong-un little rocket man and saying, our button works. The media freaked out, proclaimed Trump is going to lead us to a nuclear war. He said the same thing when Reagan called the former Soviet Union an evil empire. We knew better. And now the president's strategy is now seeing significant progress that is great for the world. Because for the first time ever, this is historic. Look at this. Kim Jong-un crossing into South Korea for this historic positive meeting with South Korean President Moon. And a meeting between President Trump, President Moon, and Kim Jong-un is moving forward as planned. Not done yet, certainly good progress. And also breaking today, according to South Korean sources, the North Korean dictator is willing to give up his nuclear weapons program completely as long as the United States agrees to officially end the Korean War and promise not to launch an attack. Now, over the weekend, during a rally in Michigan, well, the crowd reacted. Well, this is when the president was going to be at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And I proudly, in 30 years of radio, 23 years on TV, have never been to a single one. I'm proud of that. This is how the crowd reacted to the developments on the Korean Peninsula. Take a look.
I remember, it was very rough 3-4 months ago. That's very nice. Thank you. That's very nice. No bell. I just want to get the job done.
I just want to get the job done. Everyone in the fake news media, their heads just exploded. Now get this. The South Korean president agrees. Moon is now echoing these calls for President Trump to, in fact, yes, receive the Nobel Peace Prize. Let's hope he can pull this off. Now, these historic and rapidly evolving developments from the Korean Peninsula should give everyone around the world a sense of cautious optimism. And some are even calling President Trump a transformational president. 3 words, peace through strength. We'll bring you more on this later in the show. But first, the deep state is crumbling right before our eyes. Nearly 5 years ago, then National Intelligence Director James Clapper, remember he blatantly perjured himself in front of Congress? You may remember this moment.
Does the NSA collect any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans?
No, sir.
It does not.
Not wittingly. There are cases where they could inadvertently, perhaps, collect, but not wittingly.
And of course, a short time later, what do we learn? The NSA was collecting data. Clapper knew it, and he lied. He was never charged like General Flynn with lying, this case perjury, and now Clapper has been caught in yet another bold-faced lie. And according to a report from the House Intel Committee, during a closed-door hearing, Clapper flatly denied ever discussing that phony Clinton bought and paid for steal Russian dossier with a member of the media. He also repeated this claim in March during an interview with Don Lemon over at CNN. Take a look.
I didn't have any contact with media until after I left the government on the 20th of January. So I don't quite understand, at least what I've read, that somehow I leaked about the dossier.
So let me get, so you didn't leak anything about the dossier to any media?
No, I mean, I talked about it after I left the government, but not during that period, and certainly not between the 6th of January and the 10th when the president-elect himself talked about it.
This is an incredible development. Now the Intel Committee's report found that Clapper, quote, admitted to the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence in private testimony that he briefed CNN's Jake Tapper in early of January 2017. Now, this was shortly before Trump's inauguration. Tapper, along with two other journalists, so-called journalists from CNN, published a report detailing how Trump was briefed about the Steele dossier. And then a short time later, James Clapper, he was hired by fake news CNN as an analyst. You connect the dots. Now, President Trump reacted on Twitter, writing, quote, Clapper lied about fraudulent dossier leaks to CNN. He's a lying machine who now works for fake news CNN. Now, if Clapper does not face legal jeopardy over his blatant perjury to Congress, it will be yet one more example of what I say is our two-tiered system of justice. He'll go with the Hillary Clinton system of justice. Now, let's turn to the mainstream media. If you thought they couldn't get any more anti-Trump or downright vulgar, think again. They outdid themselves over the weekend. The White House Correspondents Association held their annual dinner. I am so proud I've never been, where they take some time to honor the media, pat themselves on the back, just like their Hollywood buddies, for their courageous work of echoing each other. Now, President Trump, who did not attend, previewed the dinner at his rally in Michigan. He decided to stay with the people, just like he did last year. Good choice.
By the way, is this better than that phony Washington White House Correspondents' Dinner? Is this more fun? I could be up there tonight smiling like I love where they're hitting you shot after shot. These people, they hate your guts. Shot. And then I'm supposed to... And you know, you got to smile. And if you don't smile, they'll say, he was terrible, he couldn't take it. And if you do smile, they'll say, what was he smiling about? You know, there's no way.
Now, President Trump's description, all too accurate. This year's show features so-called comedian, former Daily Show contributor, I've never heard of her before, this weekend, Michelle Wolf, delivering a performance that's so cringeworthy, vile, and so one-sided. Well, you might want to cover your ears if you have kids in the living room tonight. Take a look.
Mike Pence is also very anti-choice. He thinks abortion is murder, which, first of all, don't knock it till you try it. And when you do try it, really knock it. You know, you got to get that baby out of there. You guys got to stop putting Kellyanne on your shows. All she does is lie. If you don't give her a platform, she has nowhere to lie. It's like that old saying, if a tree falls in the woods, how do we get Kellyanne under that tree? I'm not suggesting she gets hurt, just stuck. Ivanka cleans up nice. She's the diaper genie of the administration. On the outside, she looks sleek, but the inside, it's still full of
Not even funny if you think that's bad, by the way. Wolf saved her worst remarks for Sarah Sanders, who was sitting just feet away, just a few feet away. Take a look.
And of course, we have Sarah Huckabee Sanders. We are graced with Sarah's presence tonight. I have to say, I'm a little starstruck. I love you as Aunt Lydia on The Handmaid's Tale. I actually really like Sarah. I think she's very resourceful. Like, she burns facts, and then she uses that ash to create a perfect smoky eye. Like, maybe she's born with it, maybe it's lies. And I'm never really sure what to call Sarah Huckabee Sanders. You know, is it Sarah Sanders? Is it Sarah Huckabee Sanders? Is it Cousin Huckabee? Is it Auntie Huckabee Sanders? Like, what's Uncle Tom but for white women who disappoint other white women?
By the way, Sarah, Kellyanne, they all took it with incredible grace, especially Sarah Sanders right there. This performance, or so-called performance, was so bad, so mean-spirited, that even the association's president expressed regret over Wolf's remarks, and some in the mainstream media, even they called out this so-called comedian. Take a look.
I think that the comedian crossed the line, and this went from poking fun to being mean-spirited. It was very uncomfortable. I think that Sarah Sanders handled herself very well.
A lot of the dinner should be about, journalism and not the red carpet, not the mean-spirited jokes that we saw last night. Some of those I really thought were inappropriate.
This dinner has had a lot of bad moments. I was thinking back last evening as I was watching this cringeworthy performance in some respects going after the appearance of Sarah Sanders, which I thought was inappropriate.
I really thought the pain of the people on stage when Sarah Huckabee Sanders was being made fun of, everybody felt pain for her. She felt pain, and it really bothered me. And I know there's big controversy about whether or not her appearance was being made fun of or not. Come on,
By the
stop
way,
it.
Fox News alert, Hannity agrees with Mika. All right. Anyway, just as the president tweeted, this event is now dead. Now, the president was incredibly smart not to dignify this dinner with his presence. Sarah Sanders, other Trump officials attended in order to show their appreciation for the press and the vital function that they serve in this country. And they were promptly mocked and degraded. The press deserves no such consideration going forward. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Journalism in this country is absolutely dead. They're not journalists. They're opinion advocacy hosts. They don't admit it. Our last story tonight comes from our southern border. For weeks, we have been tracking this large caravan of migrants from Central America as they march through Mexico, headed to the U.S. border. Mexico does nothing, and now dozens of migrants have arrived at the border, and they're demanding entry into the U.S., with some attempting to scale a border fence in California. President Trump weighed in also earlier today. Take a look.
We are a nation of laws. We have to have borders. We don't have borders, we don't have a country. And I've been watching for weeks as the caravan came up. And the Mexican laws are very tough on immigration, extremely tough. And it started out with way over 1,000 people. I guess now it's down to about 100. You got to have a wall. And we need border security. And we will have border security. As you know, we're sending many, many National Guardsmen down to the border. Most of them are already there. And that's having a big impact. But we need a change in the law.
Where's the Mexican government? They went all through Mexico. And by the way, they usually imprison people from Central America, El Salvador, Nicaragua, or they just return them and deport them immediately. Now, for decades, they've turned an all too obvious blind eye as millions of their citizens, as well as citizens from other countries, show no respect to our laws, our sovereignty, our borders, our citizens. This is an issue of national security, an issue of U.S. sovereignty. Mexico needs to be held accountable. And most importantly, it's time for the wall to be built on our southern border. Joining us now, Counselor to President Trump, Kellyanne Conway. I'd be negligent. I really don't want to dignify this ridiculous dinner. But I think I'd be negligent if I didn't ask your thoughts. I really, truly, it's so insulting and crude. And I try and always flip the tables. If this was a conservative comedian saying this about any liberal woman, what would the result be?
Sean, in some ways, there was very little that was surprising on Saturday night, though. The faux outrage from some people who look down at Twitter all day long and see the likes of Sarah and Ivanka me insulted. This just happened right in front of them where they were all gussied up so they couldn't deny it. I mean, in some ways, it was just another day at the office. Let me say something. Yeah. I spent tonight trying to find out how much Michelle Wolf was paid, and nobody will give me a straight answer. And I called 3 people who were on the dais who actually picked up the phone. And no one will give me an answer. Two said they had no idea. There aren't any kinds of meetings like that, no expenditures.
I'd like to know about anchors and reporters' financial holdings, too, considering everyone cares about mine.
Well, hold on. The reason I say this is we're told this is a scholarship dinner. And yes, you should pay for your entertainment. But I feel really badly for those students. The president and the vice president met them at the White House. They took pictures with them the other day. Right. I had occasion all throughout the weekend at different events to meet these scholarship winners. I feel sorry for them, because they were almost an afterthought that night. And I don't want anybody to say this was about them. This is about the First Amendment. When the president of the White House Correspondents Association stood up and said, an attack on one journalist is an attack on all journalists. Well, folks, think about this. Is an attack on one woman or two women an attack on all women?
I'm glad I didn't interrupt you. That's a powerful line. North Korea, history in the making. Nobody saw it coming.
Yes, it is.
Iran's intelligence. Yeah. President Trump was right. The unprecedented alliance, Israel, United States, the Saudis, Jordanians, Egyptians, the Emirates. It's unbelievable what peace through strength can do, and we have about a minute.
That's right. It's incredible, Sean, and it is certainly owing to President Trump's leadership and his vision, and also his patience. The relationships that he's been able to build with leaders across the world in the first 15 months of his administration, really the first year and a half since he was elected, has led us to this moment. And folks, don't underestimate the power of North Korea and South Korea literally coming together, holding hands, and saying that decades of war could just be swept away, could end. Also, North Korea has agreed to stop doing its nuclear tests, to allow inspectors in, which is key, to go back to the same time zone as South Korea. A lot of progress there, and it's Donald Trump's leadership. Many critics of this administration are giving him the credit for that, and they ought to.
These are amazing times. Are they going to ever give the president credit? I doubt it. All the best to you and Sarah Sanders tonight, and Ivanka, as a matter of fact. Breaking news, Sarah Carter, a new report. Ed Henry, Sean Spicer, Joe Concha. We got a lot of ground to cover. Stay with us.
Hannity is brought to you by
Did you see Brennan that said, actually, says, stay tuned, Mr. President? That sounded like a deep state threat to me. And similarly, you know, look at Rod Rosenstein. Articles of impeachment drafted, and the media is ignoring it. Did Rod Rosenstein have anything to do with signing off on the FISA warrants and lying to FISA courts with information that was unverified, uncorroborated, and paid for by Hillary Clinton, and they didn't tell the judge that part?
Absolutely. And this is the reason why, you know, the House Freedom Caucus has this last resort drafted this one-page memo, and they want to get it out there. Their frustration with trying to get information from the Department of Justice, from the FBI, the failure to turn over this information in time. They're being stonewalled. They're being slow-walked. So this is an enormous frustration for congressional committees who have oversight over these departments. They know that there's failures here. They know that some of these investigations, now that they've looked into this, I mean, we would have never known anything, Sean, had it not been for these committees investigating this.
Is this what Brennan is saying? Stay tuned, Mr. President. All these questions. What was your opinion of Mr. Comey during the transition? It doesn't matter what his opinion was of Mr. Comey during the transition. He had every right to fire him. Rod Rosenstein said the FBI would never be cleaned out with Jim Comey in office. These New York Times questions, you could use it to burn in your fireplace tonight.
He absolutely had a right to fire Comey. Absolutely. That was his privilege to fire Comey. And it wasn't just the president who wanted to fire Comey. Let's go back a little bit further into the past. The Democrats wanted Comey fired as well. So everybody wanted Comey fired until Comey was actually fired. And that's what's interesting here. And look at what Clapper's been saying to the media. This is also very interesting. I mean, Clapper's been espousing the same type of disinformation, alluding to things that are happening. And now we know that Clapper was more than likely the leak to CNN on the dossier, which got everything started, and then later hired by CNN.
Where do you think these questions came from? Where do you think these New York Times, which half of them are asinine, putting that aside, you don't have to be a lawyer to figure it out. Where do you think they came from?
Well, they were actually leaked by people, I believe, from the special counsel. Wow. I believe that they were leaked. And this
somebody at the special counsel's talking to Brennan and Clapper?
Correct.
Maybe
And then
the corrupt Andrew Weissman and company?
Possibly. I
Let
mean,
me
we
ask
don't
you a
know
last
exactly
question.
who's doing this.
You have an article out tonight that I wish we had more time on, and that is the VA appointee of the president. You discovered 4 sources. Unbelievable story.
Yeah, so what I was told, and I've had it confirmed through 4 sources, and it's definitely true that the vice president's physician, now this is not a handpicked physician by the vice president, it is a selected physician through the military. Dr. Jennifer Pena was the one that led this, I guess, this backlash against Dr. Ronnie Jackson to the Hill. And it's very concerning, one, because it looks like it's been a long time dispute between both of them. It looks like it's an internal problem for both of them. I know I talked to people at the White House that want to stress this is not a problem between the vice president and the president.
This person gets fired?
I think there is a chance that this person gets fired, but it has to follow protocol. So it would have to go through the military office.
Unbelievable reporting, Sarah Carter. This New York Times thing, put it in your fireplace and burn it. Because we have sources that say half of these questions are dumb anyway. You don't, oh, what was in your mind at the time? You don't punish people or charge people. Not that you can charge a sitting president, and the president has every right to fire anybody he wants for the thoughts they have in their head. Joining us now, former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer, The Hill's Joe Concha, former president of the National Correspondents Association, Fox News chief national correspondent Ed Henry. Let's start with you, Sean Spicer. You know, it's fascinating. If anybody ever leaked any of this from any special counsel and to the New York Times, another anonymous source thing, it would be against a Democrat. You and I both know there'd be such an outcry in the country about that.
Absolutely. I think that what you're seeing now is definitely concerning. And I understand why the president wants to get this wrapped up. We've seen it go over and over again for the better part of a year. No evidence has come forward. Everything gets leaked out that's disfavorable to the president. And it's about time that they fish or cut bait. The president and the White House have been very forthcoming with individuals and information. And it's about time that we either wrap this thing up or allow the president to, because the president's doing great things and has to move on the agenda of this country.
What was your opinions of Mr. Comey? What does it matter? He can fire him for any reason. Joe Concha.
Well, I think we see, Sean, with the behavior of James Comey on the book tour in terms of getting personal about the president. If you look at Brennan's Twitter account and just scroll down it, you see a highly partisan, vitriolic person on there. And it's hard to believe that when he was running the CIA, that he actually was able to separate all those feelings and do his job without that sort of partisan thinking. And obviously Clapper, who's now a CNN contributor, same thing. So I think this is very disturbing that you have all of these top officials engaging in partisan behavior. And as for the leaks, I mean, we keep hearing that Mueller is running a straightforward, clean investigation. Then how did that get into the pages of the New York Times exactly? I'd love to know.
Yeah. When you appoint Andrew Weissman, who withheld exculpatory evidence twice, was overturned 9-0 in the Supreme Court, put 4 Merrill executives in jail for a year, overturned by the Fifth Circuit, and put tens of thousands of Anderson accounting workers out of work and blow everything and get appointed by Mueller, it ought to tell you everything you need to know. Ed Henry, quick question on the Correspondents' Dinner. Why would President Trump ever go, I think he's right, I think this whole thing is dead, goodbye, it's buried now?
I used to think he might go next year ahead of his reelection battle, try to have an olive branch, but I think you're right now that he will never go. That was destroyed on Saturday night. Sarah Sanders was treated horribly. The Correspondents Association invited her basically into our home for dinner, and she was personally, viciously attacked. And I think it's unlikely the president will go. Pardon me. And I think that I've spoken to a lot of reporters who say that the association played right into the president's hands, and that's why he was outside the Beltway talking to the people, and inside the Beltway you had these elites, sort of, beating up on Sarah Sanders, and I think it was a big, big mistake.
All right,
Sean, if I can, that Ed's absolutely right. I mean, if this was a celebration of what the media thinks is the celebration of the First Amendment, I hate to see how they'd celebrate the 4th of July. There was no invocation. They gave CNN an award right off the bat on debunked information. They attacked the comedian, made derogatory comments about the tragedy on the Southwest Airlines. The vile and disgusting language they used about abortion victims was just so out of bounds. I think what yesterday was the exposure of what really is the problem that exists right now. And I hope that going forward, not only do we re-examine the need for this dinner, but a lot of folks in the media understand the concerns that people, especially conservatives, have with things like this.
If this doesn't end the White House Correspondents' Dinner for this president, I don't know what would. But I'll tell you another thing. This garbage from the New York Times tonight, absolute garbage. No attorney will ever let this president sit down with Robert Mueller. Now it's going to go on for a year. It's all executive privilege. And Mueller drove this, as I predicted he would, when he hired his hit team of partisans, Joe.
Well, I think that sums it up, Sean, in terms of Mueller, in terms of, again, all these top officials now being exposed, especially James Clapper, being shown to have lied about leaking information to the media. And I think he has some answers has to answer some questions on Capitol Hill about this. Peter King mentioned on this network earlier that that may very well happen.
What's in your mind, Ed Henry? This is not going to hold the smell test. This
I
is
think it's unlikely the president will ever sit down. You're right. There was a time that I thought he would, but this list of questions suggests they're still pursuing collusion, even though there's no evidence. And
collusion's not a crime.
Dozens of questions. It's unlikely he'll ever sit down.
Ever. All right, guys, good to see you. When we come back, Daniel Hoffman, Sebastian Gorka break down the massive developments tonight concerning the information on Iran and the history in the making with North Korea. Straight ahead. The huge breaking developments on the Korean Peninsula and out of Iran. We have Fox News national security strategist Sebastian Gorka, retired CIA senior intelligence officer, and Sonoran policy group vice president Daniel Hoffman. Let's start with the presentation by Bibi Netanyahu. It was, I think, first of all, I think he did it without notes, the single biggest intel breakthrough that I can think of in our lifetime. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think if we're old enough, we think back to those pictures during the Cuban Missile Crisis when our ambassador stood up at the United Nations and said to the Soviets, "You're lying. Here are the U-2 photographs of the missiles that you've smuggled into Cuba to attack us." It was like that, but on steroids, Sean. We're talking about tens of thousands of documents, half a ton of information, intelligence that our government has confirmed that proves everything the president has been saying. The Iran deal is a sham, and the Iranians want and are developing nuclear weapons to use against the West and to use against Israel. It's a slam dunk, and as far as I'm concerned, as of today, thanks to Bibi Netanyahu, the JCPOA Iran deal, Obama's wonderful legacy, is dead.
Mr. Hoffman, beyond that, now the world has clarity to get out of this ridiculous Iranian deal, and even more historic. You see, North Korean dictator, who not that long ago was firing missiles over Japan and threatening Guam and the world and the United States, crossing over the DMZ, meeting with the South Korean president. And I would say Donald Trump played a big part in all of that.
He did. Let me just make a quick comment on the Iran deal. There were three elements of that were really a problem for us. The first was the sunset clause. The second, that it didn't address Iran's development of ICBMs. And third, that it provided an influx of cash for Iran's state-sponsored terrorism. One of the really interesting parts of Prime Minister Netanyahu's briefing today related to Iran's plans to integrate ICBMs with nuclear weapons. That has to be cause for great concern for us. And I think what we're waiting for right now is the U.S. intelligence community assessment of the veracity of the intelligence report. I expect this story to carry on in the days ahead, Sean.
Yeah. What is your take on North Korea? I mean, did anyone? This is the typical liberal thought process, though, Dr. Gorka. Oh, we've got to kiss their ring. Oh, we've got to bribe them. Oh, if we're nicer to them, they'll be nicer to us. It never works.
the left wing have dictatorial propensities themselves. That's what political correctness is. Political correctness is, in fact, a form of censorship. They like to control other people, so they're sympathetic to dictatorships, whether it's ogling over the propaganda minister of North Korea during the Olympics, or whether it's worshipping the Iranian mullahs and giving them $150 billion. They're simpatico with these people, so this is when it stops. No more appeasement. This isn't Berlin in 1938. This isn't the Cuban Missile Crisis. It stops on January the 20th, 2016.
It worked for Reagan. It worked for Churchill. It worked for, it works. Appeasement fails, Mr. Hoffman.
Yeah, just one comment about North Korea that I think is really important for us to highlight is the president has steadfastly said that if this isn't going the right way, he's going to walk out. And he's not giving any sanctions relief until North Korea fully denuclearizes. And that's, I think, a key element here. We've made errors in the past where we gave them a lot of aid, and then it broke down over verification. So
trust but verify, and they get nothing until
mistrust but verify, I would even say in this case. Yes.
Amazing times we're living in, I'll tell you that. Thank you both. When we come back, Candace Owens is back. She met with Kanye West over the weekend. We're going to find out what happened straight ahead. All right, so last week, Kanye West praised Turning Point USA Communications Director Candace Owens on Twitter, saying that he likes the way she thinks. This past weekend, Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk, they went to California to meet with Kanye face-to-face. She joins us now with more details. All right, I never got to hang out with Kanye. I did meet Kim Kardashian, though. What can you tell us about it?
You know, I can tell you that Kanye has a wonderful, beautiful vision for the future of America. It's a unifying message, and this is really just the beginning of it. And I'm incredibly honored to not only be on his journey, but for him to be on mine. He understands something, and he sees something on both sides, and I really think he's going to be significant in bridging the gap.
You know, I think friends of mine have told me, maybe you agree with this, I think this has the potential, maybe I'm over analyzing this, to perhaps start a cultural shift here. It has bothered me to no end as a conservative, the lies told every election year. Republicans are racist, misogynist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, because that's not who I am or the people that I know are. And I don't hear solutions for the country for the forgotten men and women. All I hear is the same narrative every election cycle. And it frustrates me. And I do believe that to some extent, sadly, it's effective.
Look, you're exactly right. And listen, it was Andrew Breitbart that said that politics is downstream from culture. And this is why this is so significant with Kanye West, because he defines culture. He's pretty much at the top of it. And he's willing to have these conversations. He's willing to go against the grain. He's willing to put on a MAGA hat. And he understands, you know, how symbolic that was, how excited people were, because exactly what you said, they were able to say, look, I wear that MAGA hat, and I am not an awful person. So when Kanye West wears it and he says, I love Donald Trump, he is my brother, it means so much more. It reverberates around the world, and I am telling you, he's got a great mindset. He's in an incredible space right now.
I look at, for example, I just love iconoclastic people. As much as I hate Bill Maher, and I mean, he hates me and I hate him, just a fact. But it's always been people like Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh, the great one, Mark Levin, conservatives that defended him, and Colt, just conservatives defend him, not liberals. Why? Why would that be, considering they claim to be the champions of free and open exchange of ideas, ideals, and opinion?
Well, I think a lot of times it's hard for them to step out of their own reality, and a lot of the things that they say are not rooted in very many facts. And I have to say, Kanye offered me a very different perspective. You know, on the right, we tend to say, and this came from Ben Shapiro, that facts don't care about your feelings. But on the left, you know, the feelings do become facts, and at some point we do have to acknowledge that. You know, their feelings have become facts, and the only way we're going to combat that is to hear them out and understand where they're coming from, and to come up with a different solution. I'm telling you, culture is that solution. They place a lot of emphasis on culture and, you know, who's wearing what hat and who says what they can and cannot think.
You know, Candace, since I've gotten to know you, I told you, I am loving this trajectory. It's like a rocket ship. Your career is taking off, and you should be very proud. It's fun to watch. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much, Sean.
All right, when we come back, Kathy Griffin taking back her apology next.
I'm very proud.
All right, so last week, Kanye West praised Turning Point USA Communications Director Candace Owens on Twitter, saying that he likes the way she thinks. This past weekend, Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk, they went to California to meet with Kanye face-to-face. She joins us now with more details. All right, I never got to hang out with Kanye. I did meet Kim Kardashian, though. What can you tell us about it?
I can tell you that Kanye has a wonderful, beautiful vision for the future of America. It's a unifying message, and this is really just the beginning of it. And I'm incredibly honored to not only be on his journey, but for him to be on mine. He understands something, and he sees something on both sides, and I really think he's going to be significant in bridging the gap.
You know, I think friends of mine have told me, maybe you agree with this, I think this has the potential, maybe I'm over analyzing this, to perhaps start a cultural shift here. It has bothered me to no end as a conservative, the lies told every election year. Republicans are racist, misogynist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, because that's not who I am or the people that I know are. And I don't hear solutions for the country for the forgotten men and women. All I hear is the same narrative every election cycle. And it frustrates me. And I do believe that to some extent, sadly, it's effective.
Look, you're exactly right. And listen, it was Andrew Breitbart that said that politics is downstream from culture. And this is why this is so significant with Kanye West, because he defines culture. He's pretty much at the top of it. And he's willing to have these conversations. He's willing to go against the grain. He's willing to put on a MAGA hat. And he understands, how symbolic that was, how excited people were, because exactly what you said, they were able to say, look, I wear that MAGA hat, and I am not an awful person. So when Kanye West wears it and he says, I love Donald Trump, he is my brother, it means so much more. It reverberates around the world, and I am telling you, he's got a great mindset. He's in an incredible space right now.
I look at, for example, I just love iconoclastic people. As much as I hate Bill Maher, and I mean, he hates me and I hate him, just a fact. But it's always been people like Sean Hannity, Rush Limbaugh, the great one, Mark Levin, conservatives that defended him, and Colt, just conservatives defend him, not liberals. Why? Why would that be, considering they claim to be the champions of free and open exchange of ideas, ideals, and opinion?
Well, I think a lot of times it's hard for them to step out of their own reality, and a lot of the things that they say are not rooted in very many facts. And I have to say, Kanye offered me a very different perspective. On the right, we tend to say, and this came from Ben Shapiro, that facts don't care about your feelings. But on the left, the feelings do become facts, and at some point we do have to acknowledge that. Their feelings have become facts, and the only way we're going to combat that is to hear them out and understand where they're coming from, and to come up with a different solution. I'm telling you, culture is that solution. They place a lot of emphasis on culture and, who's wearing what hat and who says what they can.